Hey, great Monday evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Conversations with Chosen Pen. I am Dr. Anissa Short, your host. Dr. Norma McLaughlin, unfortunately, could not be with us today, but she, I'm sure, is somewhere watching. So thank you again for taking time out to hang out with us. We've got two phenomenal guests. We're going to continue our conversation regarding the trip to Africa. If you watched last week's episode, we had Dr. Kara Harrison and Trizia Wallace on talking about the trip that Chosen Pen had in reference to going to South Africa, our literacy campaign in South Africa, the TEDx experience, how we are really working to partner with the schools there, and a lot of other great things have occurred subsequently since that actual trip. And of course, our team was comprised of several people, and today's guests are two additional personalities that joined us. This was their first time being a part of the trip. Now, Takhia Gaither, all the way from Baltimore, Maryland, is a STEM educator. She was our one of our, let's say, Chosen Pen people, the family part of the Chosen Pen family. She works very closely with Chosen Pen in that she does a lot of the editing and formatting of many of the books that we publish. Takhia, thank you so very much for hanging out with us today.
Thank you for having me.
We also have the artistic creator himself, Mr. Keith Sykes, all the way from Fayetteville, North Carolina, veteran, gifted photographer. He just does a little bit of everything, and it's all artistic in nature. This was Keith's first trip. He went along with us. He's actually a published author. He published his first book. We had the privilege of being able to assist him with that project. We, as in Chosen Pen, and then he served as the photographer for the trip for Chosen Pen Publishing. Keith, thanks so much for hanging out with us today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. So let me just remind you before we jump into our conversations, the literacy campaign that Chosen Pen has undertaken as a result of adopting Robin Hill's primary school in South Africa continues. We mentioned last week that one of our major focuses was their library. So we will be continuing with our our push for books for the library, and it also has another component which involves the computer lab. And Dr. Carol Harrison was on last week, and she made reference to the fact that that campaign still is going forward. So if you are interested in partnering with Chosen Pen and being a part of the literacy program, whether that be to provide books or that be a part of the campaign for Chromebooks, because we're looking to get, I think, 120 tablets for the students. Be sure to contact Dr. Carol Harrison herself. I made sure her information is on the screen, and I'll be sharing it periodically throughout the show. Don't forget, if you want more information about Chosen Pen Publishing, if you're looking to publish your own book, or you want to partner with Chosen Pen on any of our projects, feel free to contact Chosen Pen. Go to www.chosenpen.com. And again, I'll be sharing this information again throughout the show. So let's get started. So listen, friends, we were all there together. I don't even know. Let's start with the first stop. Our first stop was the school. Now, this was my first time going to the school as well, because that relationship was established from our first visit in September. So we all got a chance to see the school, have an engagement with the principal and the librarian. I don't know who wants to offer expression first, but let's just tell me what you guys thought. What did you think? What was it like for you?
I'll go. It was overwhelmingly good. Like those are the best words I could think of to describe it. So, being a teacher for 18 years, the feeling that I got walking into that building, I usually only get at graduations when I see the kids that I've, poured into and worked with, and they walk across the stage, and some of them had like their challenges and whatever. And so then you start remembering back when. But I got that same feeling walking into that library, and nobody had done anything other than shown up. So for me, it was just COVID kind of dampened a lot of my teacher life. I was over it. But being there and seeing how the kids lit up and how happy they were with the books, and then you walk in the computer lab, and I was like, this is my world. This is my spot. This is the stuff I do. And just to see it all coming to fruition, it relit the flame. So now I'm not going back in anybody's classroom, but I'm it relit the flame to do other stuff in other ways to still further education and all of that stuff. So it was just beautiful to see.
It's good to get your perspective as an educator. I know you taught school for years in STEM program. Dr. Norma is really excited about you assisting with creating a curriculum for the students. That's one of the
Mhm.
things that Chosen Pen is doing. The literacy literacy component is a major umbrella, and everything falls underneath that. So the goal is to go back to South Africa at least once a year, and every time we go to do something with the children that's going to expand. This time we were delivering good news and delivering books, but eventually it's going to be about working with the children, bringing a curriculum, and you're going to be very much a part of that, or you are a very much a part of that. So tell us a little bit of how that's coming along.
It's coming along great. I was just talking with Dr. Norma about it last week. Because of the way my mind works, I like tried to attack the whole thing at one time. But then actually being there and seeing the school and talking with the principal, it kind of dawned on me while I was there that educationally, and then after we heard like the story about, Hector Peterson and how they're just now coming into like STEM curriculum and building mathematical knowledge and all of that stuff, it kind of almost put me at a halt, but not a halt to where it made me just dead stop. It was a halt to redirect, and so it gave me that piece of direction that I needed to say, okay, what I'm designing right now is not going to help them where they are. The kindergartners will be straight going through, but for the kids that are there, they need probably more enrichment stuff, because if I hand them the mathematics that I was intending to write out, it would not do them any good right now. They
Gotcha.
wouldn't be successful with that.
Gotcha.
But if we can start them from kindergarten, maybe even the first graders, and bring them up through the steps and the years of the curriculum, when they leave, they will be ready to take on the rest of the South African political system, educational system, be ready for higher learning and all of those things. And even if they don't do that, they will leave out of seventh grade having a much stronger educational base than a lot of what they have in place now.
Gotcha.
Because their basics, like their kindergarten, is almost like our pre-K, um,
Okay.
where the kids come in and they haven't had any formal education. It's their first time in school. They really are just learning the little things, the alphabet, the colors, the shapes,
Gotcha.
how to get along in the world with people. Like our kindergartners come into kindergarten and they're ready to read. Some of them are already reading. A lot of them aren't going to be at that level.
That's
So
advanced, right?
yeah, so understanding, seeing that dynamic helped put a lot of the curriculum work, like into not into play, but it gave me somewhere to start from,
Right. It
because
gave you
in the
more a
beginning,
better
a
perspective.
perspective. Yes,
Yeah,
that's right.
gotcha.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
it gave
I'm
me.
glad you were able to go for that reason, because Dr.
Mhm.
Norma, I know you two are working very closely together. And so to be able to experience that firsthand, it is so much better than just taking someone's secondhand knowledge or third hand knowledge
Mhm.
of what was going on. So yeah. So let's talk to Keith, because he was the photographer. I don't know how, first of all, Keith, you managed to enjoy the experience and continue to take pictures, because I could do, but that's why you're you and you're not me. So let's give us some feedback. What was it like for you?
Well, I would say definitely walking into the classroom, seeing the kids react to the books and seeing them open the books. I was actually enjoying it from a little bit different perspective, because I was looking at it, like almost like a picture in front of me, looking at them, looking at the books and looking at the expressions on their faces, and watching each and every one of them, for the purpose of taking photos of them too, but then also because it was my first experience, just looking at, you know one of the things I know I paid attention to is how we have a habit here in the States of taking certain things for granted that they don't see as much as our kids see. And something as simple as a small book that's given to them from someone else, I mean, it meant the world to those
It
kids,
did, for real.
and I mean, they were literally excited, like you just gave them an iPhone, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. And then when we walked into the computer lab, looking at how everything is set up, and then how they were so excited about what was going to happen in the future to the whole classroom and computer lab and all of that. It's just something that gives you hope
Right.
in certain situations, that some of the things that you're doing is really making a difference. So I love seeing it. I love seeing it.
It was such an uplifting experience for me. And you could tell, and even in our conversations with the principal there, the
Yes.
librarian, and she talked about how the children had been her little worker bees and been helping her get the library together. And these kids were out of school. They were on their, I guess, spring break,
Right.
for the lack of a better phrase. And so they weren't even supposed to be on the campus, but because they knew we were coming and we were bringing books, they asked to be a part of this whole experience. So that's another thing, because I don't know that I would have going to come back to the school. On my, let's be clear,
Right. Right. Right.
on my spring book. But I do agree with what you said with your comment about the way the children responded. It was
Yeah.
like their response was like a child at Christmas
Right.
about us bringing books. That's
Exactly
what
that.
that's all we brought. We didn't bring computers, we didn't bring
Right.
laptops, we didn't bring cell phones, we didn't bring cash money, we didn't bring
Right.
sweet treats or anything. We
Right.
had suitcases of books, and they were elated about getting books.
They
That
were.
just
They
shifted
were.
my perspective totally from you're right, Keith. We take a lot for granted here in the US. And what they were thankful and very appreciative for, the average child in the US disregards.
Right. Right.
I was like, wow. So I'm the forgiveness garden, the grounds, everything that we're doing, the little bit of money that we have here in the US goes so far in South Africa. So for those who are wanting to partner with Chosen Pen, just trust and believe that our dollars go a long way. I don't know, was it like 16 rand to a dollar in
Yes.
South Africa?
18 something,
15 to 18 rand.
16 to 18.
So, when we talk about, giving $100 for a Chromebook, or giving $100 to help with buying textbooks, or giving $100 to help with the infrastructure, the painting of the buildings, and all the cosmetic things that still need to be done, that money goes a long way. So that was our first step, the school. Then we had the TEDx conference, and we all got cute and dressed up and showed up at the State Theater. I think I'm saying it right. Wasn't it the State Theater,
Mm-hmm.
South
The
Africa State
state
Theater?
theater.
It was
Yeah.
at the University
Mhm.
of South Africa. So Keith, let's do this in reverse. What was that experience like for you?
So I had no idea what to expect for anything. I mean, nothing at all. I just didn't know. I couldn't even imagine the enormity of what to expect when I got there. So after seeing the school and experiencing the kids, and then coming to the State Theater and seeing all of the different people from all over the world that were part of the TEDx experience, I have to say I was a little nervous at first, because I didn't know what to expect when I got on stage, how it was going to play out. But I think that the thing that helped me when I got on stage was the fact that there were so many bright lights right in my face that I couldn't even see the crowd. So that made me feel a whole lot more comfortable being on the stage with those lights in my face. And I think I only saw maybe the first row.
Right.
Uh, so then when we got into the discussion of forgiveness, it's just funny how I started to feel so comfortable, and just talking about different things that affected me as far as my family life, and my father's absence and things like that. But it was an amazing experience for me. I think if I'd have got a chance to go back the very next month, I would have turned around and went right back.
Right.
It was amazing to meet so many different people from all across the world. And then when you hear different people's stories that are so much similar to yours, it's just amazing how we are all connected in one way or another.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It was all very that I think the transparency and the authenticity is what created the comfortable vibe.
Yeah,
And to your point with regards to people around the world, there were literally, we had, I don't know, I think a total of 20 to 20, just a little shy of 30 authors and speakers from various places within the United States. But then, because the University of South Africa in Johannesburg is so diverse, there were many people who were Africans, but they were from different pockets of Africa. So
right,
you met
right,
people that lived in Johannesburg, but they may have been from Zambia, or they may have been from
right, right.
Zimbabwe, and of course someone thought I was from Nigeria. I just thought I'd throw that out there. But anyway, but that was a great experience. And then getting a chance to engage with them and have conversation, that was just, I can understand, that that's how I felt last year when we went for the first time.
Okay.
It's hard to convey. It's one of those things that you have to be a part of experientially to be able to really be able to communicate it. Come on, Takhia, tell us what you thought, because you were on stage as well as a part of the TEDx.
Yeah. So I was just like Keith when on our panel, it was doctor, doctor, counselor, and then it was me, and I was like, man, I don't have. I mean, I want to be a doctor. I want to get my doctorate and all that stuff. And then, like you said, when I looked out and realized you couldn't see a thing, I was like, all right, well then this is just like talking on Zoom when you don't
Right.
see no people no way, so I'm good. I think the one thing that stuck out for me is that on my panel, everybody else had experienced like some childhood trauma. And the issue that put me in a space to have to go through a self-forgiveness journey happened to me in adulthood. It had nothing at all to do with anything of my upbringing, of my childhood, or any of that. It was stuff that happened like in my 20s and 30s and earlier 40s, because I 46 today. So
Happy birthday.
thank you. So going through all of that, it was like, wow. So I didn't have like, they're sharing stories, of things that, happened when they were younger and with parents. And I'm like, nope, I was fully grown and mostly aware and still caught all the trauma of somebody that had been going through things from like ever. But the need to forgive myself was still, and it still was then and still is like present. It's an ongoing
Yeah,
event. And
process.
so,
Right.
when you start thinking about the things that you let go of, and I think one of the things that really hit me while I was there is that had I not let go of all the stuff that I had been dealing with and started writing about it, I would have never gotten to South Africa.
That's a good point. That's a very
I,
good point.
I would have never been there because it wasn't on my mind to talk about it. I didn't I didn't want to. I would talk about it in pieces locally to people that I knew or that asked, but to go across the world and have to say to anybody, yes, I actually almost to a degree knowingly went into an abusive relationship and had to come out of it and had to forgive myself for going into it knowing that I shouldn't have been in it to start with.
Right.
Like that's a big thing to come to grips with, but then to be able to talk about it in a way that um, was encouraging and lets other people know if you're in it, then you can get out and it's
That's
it's
true.
okay. And so that was my big takeaway. Like had I not followed God's directions, just like Lady Norma was talking about her following them the next day or 2 days later when we were up talking to the panel on the roof, had I not followed God's directions, I wouldn't have been there to actually see why I had to go through the path that
To
I
the
went
journal,
through.
you're right. I think that speaks to part of what we're sharing. It actually speaks to um, the genius, I guess you could say, of what Dr. Norma was able to pull together, because there were so many people from so many different places speaking from a platform of forgiveness, but from different vantage points. She had the panel with the men talking about absent fathers. Then she had the Takhia's group, and they were from different vantage points. And then of course even the group that I was a part of was women in business. We talked about an element of that with regards to it, because forgiveness is something that can be weaved into, or that finds itself in every aspect of our lives. We try to disassociate. Many times we associate forgiveness with like a religious concept, but it's actually
Right.
a lifestyle, and it's actually a principle, that a situation that could pop up in any aspect of our lives, and it's a practice or principle that we should implement, because it can touch every aspect of our lives, and if we don't deal with it appropriately, it can either hinder us, or we find a way to make it work to our favor. So I believe the TEDx conference was phenomenal. We got that done, and then Takhia said rooftop, so you know where I'm going next. Right now, we can't divulge any top secret information. We were fortunate enough to go into the tallest building in South Africa. I think I'm saying that right. And we
Mhm.
had refreshments on the rooftop. What? Let's talk about that panoramic view, Keith. I don't know if anybody can express it any better than you.
Yeah. So first of all, to be in South Africa, where I've never been before, and to see it visually from the top of the tallest building, you know, and we just happened to be there on a beautiful day.
Yes.
It was absolutely amazing, and just listening to, you know, everybody's conversations. Like I say again, I'm like a fly on the wall, looking at everything that's going on and hearing everything that's going on, and trying to take it all in because I'm looking at the scenery around outside the building, and then I'm listening to everybody and looking at everybody. It was absolutely amazing, and to see everybody have that opportunity to be able to be involved in something that can do such good for, you know, so many different people that are
Right.
not even directly connected to them. You know,
Right.
it was just something good to watch. I mean, it made me feel good, and I didn't even have anything directly to do with what was going on at that moment.
Right.
At that point, but I absolutely enjoyed every moment of it. And I hope, I can only hope that I get the opportunity to go back.
Yeah. Well, the first part of our trip was business. You know, we did
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
project with the school, the literacy campaign, the TEDx conference. Dr. Norma had some engagements and some interviews and things of that nature that had to go on. So the first few days was really about getting settled in Johannesburg and taking care of the business. I think the rooftop experience was our transitional moment because then after that, it was still business in that we were building relationships and things of that nature, but we had a chance to have other experiences as a result. And that was to
Yeah,
see more
absolutely.
of not only Johannesburg, but Kruger International, the national park. We actually went to
Yeah.
Zimbabwe. So that's another element. That's the cultural. Let's call it the cultural part of the trip. Okay. So Takia, let's just shift now. Yeah, I know I mentioned the rooftop experience, but let's just shift and just talk about the trip in its entirety, not just the first part, but let's talk about the second half. What was it like for you to see Mother Africa?
It was so amazing. Like I don't excuse me, to be a writer and to be good with words, I can't find any to describe what we saw, what I felt, what I experienced. Like I was telling my mother, I said at various points in the trip, especially while we were at Victoria Falls, all I could seem to hear was like CC One is the goodness of God, like playing in the background. Like somebody should have just hit the button and it should have just came over a loudspeaker and you should just see it with the rainbow and the mist and all of the water falling and all of the stuff. It was one of the things that I looked at, and I love my children and I was glad to have a mommy break. But that was probably when we got to the fun part to see all the sights. That was the part where I was like, man, this is stuff that I want them to see. And so it another re-energy moment that I know in a couple of years when they can sit still and take the flight, that one of those trips when we go back to do the school and do all of those things, they're definitely coming with me because that's stuff that I want them to experience. And I don't want
Right,
them to have to wait to be 45 to see it. I want
right,
them to see it, when they're younger. So just like my parents did stuff for us so that we wouldn't have to wait till we were grown ups to see it. I want to do that same thing for them. So in a couple years, they'll be on the board too. Get them a job and they can go to work.
they'll have a task,
They'll
right?
have
They'll just be
a task
there.
to do too. Well,
I
on
know.
a TED talk on whatever. Maybe by then we'll have a forgiveness for youth panel, and
You never
then
know.
you never know.
You
Because
never know.
they're gonna write a book. That's already in the plans because mommy says that's what we're doing. But just to see all of it, the warthog walking down the street like it was a dog. Like I think I laughed the hardest, and when I tell people that, they're like, "Are you serious?" I was like, "Yeah, it was just trotting down the street like it was a stray dog. Like
Right, right.
nothing else was going on. They was just chilling. Like
Yeah,
it
right.
was all of those little things, and then going into Mandela's childhood or middle adulthood home and seeing like the people that lived in the tin can houses. That I really thought over the highway, I was like, man, they got a lot of scrap yards until I saw the clothesline
Yeah, right.
and was
Right.
like, oh wait, that's not a scrap. That's really where people live. And when they went on to describe it, I was just like, wow, like just little stuff. Like Keith said earlier, little stuff that we take for granted and don't think nothing of it. Like there are really people living in what looks like a tin can split open and folded over, and they got some electricity jimmy rigged up in it in a clothesline and ways to wash clothes, and that's their home. Like, and they're,
Right.
I mean, I guess they're okay enough with it. That's where they live at. That's
Right.
what they're fine with, and
Hmm.
that's their version of normal.
Right.
And so it's just very enlightening and eye opening in the grand scheme of everything.
Yeah.
Period.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Keith, I remember we hadn't even been there. I don't even know we had been in Africa 24 hours and you were already like, y'all could just leave me here. I'm not going back.
I know.
Tell us
Yeah.
about how this was for you overall.
So, I think one of the first things I noticed was how, when you hear stories about South Africa, you think about what Takhia just talked about the people living in shanties and, drinking water out of the gutter or something like that. But to see it in places like Johannesburg and having, that street that they said is the richest street in Johannesburg, where some of the most powerful people and richest people in Johannesburg live. And then it looks just like New York, and you're driving through and you're like, oh my God, and not even that, just some of the other areas and countries that we drove through, and you're seeing the beautiful plush green fields and meadows and the mountains for days, and valleys, and I'm like, oh my, like that's just not the part that you think of when you're thinking of South Africa. So I must have, when I finally downloaded my camera and looked at my phone when I got back, I know I took over, I would say over 1,100 photos, just taking pictures of almost everything that I could see. And it was just visually overwhelming for me, because I of everything that I saw, I wanted to see more,
Right.
and I know I could have easily jumped out of the vehicle and just walked for miles, just taking photos, and I would have been all right. But it was absolutely beautiful. It was, I tell all my friends now, I travel a lot, and it was the greatest experience I've ever had in my life, ever.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I remember when I went for the first time in September, I went there to assist Dr. Norma. So I wasn't a participant and I could just sit back and just observe. And I told my husband, I said, this experience was so surreal. I don't even have words to adequately describe it. I said, I know I was in another country, on another continent. I know I flew 16 hours to be somewhere I've never been before. But at the same time, I felt like I was home.
Right. Right.
I felt like I was visiting family at a family reunion. Everywhere we went, they were saying, "You're from America, welcome home." That was the
Yeah. Yeah.
resonating theme. No matter where we were, South Africa, Kruger, Zimbabwe, it was always welcome home, welcome home.
Hmm.
It was that thing. And you didn't, and even though they didn't, even if they didn't say it, that's how I felt. I felt like I was
Hmm.
home. And that's strange because I've never been to Africa, but there was a part of me that connected to the continent. And that just blew my mind, just blew my mind. So we went to Kruger National Park, which is the national park where all the where everybody roams free. The elephants, the tigers, the zebras, the giraffes, everybody roams free. And if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, is where the three countries meet up to. It's
Somewhere in there, yeah.
Somewhere
somewhere
in
in there.
there. Yeah.
Hmm.
All I know is they told us when we get to the chalet that we were staying in, we were to not to go anywhere at night, and we would need to stay in the house because we were subject to see anything. So I followed those instructions literally. But now the safari, you guys were able to go on a safari that morning because I'd done the safari the previous year, and I was like, well, I don't know. So you all went on your very first safari. Tell us about that. Tell us about not only that, and then we'll shift to Zimbabwe and talk about Victoria Falls and close it up with um with Keith taming the lions and the cheetahs. Okay. So let's talk about the safari. And everything in Zimbabwe. What do we? You go first, Takhia.
The safari was an amazing experience to see. Like I had no idea what to expect. all I remember is when we got in the truck and when we asked him, what are these big, heavy wool blankets for? And he was like, oh, in case the ride gets cold. But at the time, it didn't dawn on me that by cold, he meant because he was flying down this highway at probably like a good 65, 70 miles per hour to get to the national park. And so all you feel at 6 a.m. is all this wind hitting you in the face. So I had not planned on being wrapped up in a wool blanket in Africa. I thought that was the least place that I would ever need a wool blanket, and I stayed in that blanket till about 10 o'clock when we got out to like stretch. But just seeing the animals in their habitat, like you watch it on TV and you see National Geographic and you look at the books, and you always wonder how these people get these pictures, and then you get on the back of this truck and you realize how they get them. And I think the thing that stood out the most is when the tour guide was like, "Oh no, we don't carry guns. We just get out the way." And I'm like, "What you mean?" Like nobody has anything. If something should try to attract the truck, we just done. He's like, "No, we just get out the way, stay in the truck." Duly noted, sir. No problem, because y'all don't have no type of weapons or nothing. If I should fall out the side, the seatbelt on, and I don't want to lean out the truck. I don't care if we sitting still. I'm gonna take all my pictures from right here in this seat, and that's gonna be it.
Well, I know Keith mentioned before that, there were times when he just could just walk forever and take pictures. I'm pretty sure you soon realized that the safari was not the local zoo. You had to
that's
say,
definitely not the place to do it. Definitely not the place to do it. No.
So Keith, tell us about your safari experience, and then we're going to shift and talk about the Victoria Falls and your other experiences.
Yeah. So, of course, aside from just seeing the mountains in the backdrop and the greenery everywhere and just animals just walking freely, I kept, having the urge to just like pinch myself. Like, I cannot believe that I'm right in the middle of all of this, and like Takhia said, you see a warthog, when we saw the two warthogs walking up the dirt road just like it was nothing. And then we pull up on a group of, impala. And then when we pull up on the lions, and they're just sitting there, and you're just sitting a couple of feet from it, watching them groom themselves. And I mean, it seemed like every time I thought it couldn't get any more unbelievable, it got more unbelievable, so I was just literally overwhelmed, the entire time. But it was absolutely beautiful. It was beautiful. And I just couldn't help, but think, wow, we not only are we in a place that we've never been before, but then the weather is just so good to us.
Oh, it was perfect
every day, just
it was
perfect, to where we have perfect conditions the entire time, so
that was good. That was
I
I love the fact that when we went to the safari the previous year, very much like the one you all were on, but we were just someplace else. We were in another place, but nevertheless, it was kind of like you said, a pinch yourself moment. Like, am I really on the back of a truck in the middle of Africa looking at these animals? And they could occasionally you would have this thought when animals attack, but they're not going to attack us. It's like, do we really need to be this close? I could really see them a lot better from way over there, but they didn't seem to be phased. And, it was just, the word surreal just keeps coming back,
I know.
It just keeps coming back. So I know you got great pictures, Keith. One of the things I want to mention is Chosen Pen will be celebrating 10 years in October.
Oh, wow.
The 10-year anniversary of the existence of Chosen Pen. And what has been decided is that September the 29th is just the last Friday I don't want to start quoting dates, but the 10-year anniversary is October. And so the Friday before October rolls in is going to be a gala of sorts. And it's during that time, we're going to dedicate that to Africa. And so we plan on having photos of Africa, and there's going to be a lot of conversation about Africa, mainly because of, our ties to Africa and the experience, but mostly to bring more awareness to the projects that Chosen Pen is doing in Africa. So y'all just stay tuned for more information about that. So then let's go to our last stop. Our last stop was Zimbabwe. What I will share from that experience is that if I wanted to buy lots of wooden hippos, lions, tigers, there were plenty of people there offering them to me everywhere we went, right? Yeah. We went to Zimbabwe, and our number one reason for going is because Dr. Norma wanted to see Victoria Falls, one of the wonders of the world. But we all had an opportunity to experience Victoria Falls together through the walking trail. And then, of course, Keith, Dr. Norma, and Linda Parker, another traveler with us, actually were on the helicopter ride. So let's talk about Victoria Falls, and then let's talk about also the extracurricular that was added that Keith got a chance to do, the added spice to his trip. So I got wet. All I needed was shampoo. My hair was soaking wet. My clothes were soaking wet, and I didn't even care. I did not even care. So let's talk about that a little bit. Takhia, you go first.
Yeah, I loved Victoria Falls. I did not love the wooden hippos and everything else because I think I was done by the time the dude like was said he would trade me for my shoes, and I was like, sir, we are not trading for shoes for wooden hippos. Like that's just not what we're doing. But then it also kind of put in that reality. I heard Kuda say that Zimbabwe was actually poor. It did not sink into me like how poor it was until there were all these hustle people around, and then it like sunk. It was like they just trying to live, and so I can't be mad at them for trying to live.
Right.
Yes, it's uncomfortable and it's annoying because I just don't. If I say no, I mean no, and I just want you to go ahead, go move on to the next person. But it's their survival. Like they were just trying to eat, and so you
Right.
can't be mad at them for that part. I don't want hippos and stuff. But getting to the falls and the lookout restaurant and
Oh,
all
I
of
forgot
that,
about that.
oh, it was so breathtaking. Like
Yeah.
the picture that I posted today was for my birthday was one of the ones from Victoria Falls. I think on Zoom on my phone, the background picture that I use on there is one of the ones that I took at the falls. Like at any given moment when I just start feeling like I'm having some type of day, I think that's the main reason I haven't cleared my phone off because I just flip back through and it's just so peaceful and
I
calming.
know.
And
I know.
it's a still picture. Like I won't even push go on the video because I'll just be gone. But the just to sit there and look at the picture and then go back to the memory and all of the peace and the tranquility. Um, it's just always gonna be a screensaver. Like I
Yeah.
don't know what can ever top or replace that, but
I bet you Keith has a picture that'll top and replace it, though. I bet you he
well, great, and I'm gonna take one of his, and that's just what it's gonna be. But
I know,
that
right?
would be
And you made to your point. We were able to go to the richest part of South Africa and the poorest,
And of
because
course.
Johannesburg is one of the richest parts of South Africa, and Zimbabwe is the poorest country in South
Yes,
Africa. So
yes.
we had the juxtaposition of those two, definitely, which was
it.
another added point to the trip. It really was. Keith, what about you? Keith had a lot. He did Victoria Falls with us. We did the and then some.
Yeah, so one of the things that I do whenever I travel is I try to make sure that I see at least one sunrise and one sunset wherever I go. So our guide Kuda um, scheduled two sunrises for us, and we went to the highest point. One morning, we went to the highest point in Johannesburg and watched the sunrise there. And it was absolutely amazing. It was cold that morning, but it was absolutely amazing. And then the very last morning that we were there, he coordinated for the shuttle to take us to Victoria Falls Hotel. Um, and it had a straight shot of the big gorge with the bridge going across, with the sunrise coming up right over the gorge and the falls right behind that, and the big gold and orange and red clouds right going through that. And I mean, I was absolutely, I was like, I could sit here for hours and hours and hours and just take pictures, take video, listen to it, watch it, whatever. But that was probably the most beautiful or sunrise I've ever seen in my life. Seeing all of that come together in one. And even when I
Wow.
look at the picture now, if I didn't take that myself, I would think it was probably computer generated.
Photoshopped, maybe even Photoshop.
Yeah, Photoshop. Yeah, I would think it was Photoshop, because I've shown it to a few of my friends, and that's exactly what they said. They said, "Is that real?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's exactly what I was looking at. Like I didn't touch it up at all, but it was absolutely beautiful." So, and when we left Victoria Falls Hotel, we decided to not take the shuttle back to the hotel. We literally walked from Victoria Falls Hotel back to our hotel. So that's when walking through the local area and you seeing the like the gorillas. What's the big gorillas? Why I had the name.
Baboons. What
Huh?
are baboons?
Orangutan?
Yeah, baboons.
Baboons, okay.
Seeing the baboons walking the street, like a group of 6 of them just walking, and I'm like, and the warthogs again, and then Kuda was like, there's no telling, we may not, we might even see an elephant walking down the street or whatever. So I was hoping I would see that because I was definitely ready to take a photo or video or whatever. So I had my camera out the whole time doing video and photos, and we walked past this group of ladies who stopped us, and they said to me, they said, "You're not from here, are you?" Because I was the one, I was doing this, and I said, "No, I'm not from here." And she was like, "Well, are you having a good time?" I said, "Yeah." She was like, "Are you coming back?" I said, "Absolutely." And she was like, "Well, tell your friends." So they love to hear that. Like when you go there and you have a good time and you love it there, and you're going to tell people to come, they love hearing that because they love having us there. So for me, just seeing all of the different levels of how people live, from the most affluent to the poorest, and just seeing things from a visual perspective. I mean, it was everything to me. Oh, and then the last thing was taking that helicopter ride over Victoria Falls. So I mean, to actually walk along the trails and go through Victoria Falls, I was feeling at my peak at that point. But then to actually be able to jump in a helicopter and ride over and get a bird's eye view of it, I was like, I mean, I could just go.
You done.
Yeah. If this was it for me, I would be okay because I've seen it all.
You know what? I love seeing the expression that, Keith has a sense of humor for those who know him. And it was like in any moment he would go, I'm going to, because at one time he says he started sharing, communicating some information with me. And I was like, well, what are you talking about? He says, oh, I'm not coming back. I just need you to handle that for me. It was like he was ready to jump ship. Africa was going to be his new home. One of the reasons why I wanted you both to share is because I wanted you to be able to share from a personal perspective what the trip is like. To go to Africa with us is not strictly vacation. However, we do experience the culture. And I think that's so important. We go there, we take care of business. We go there to make an impact. We go there to be a gift to our people because they need us, to be there for them. And we want to be there for them. So the first half of what we do is all about making an impact, making a difference, being a gift, being a vessel that can be used to inspire others. That's what the trip is about. But in addition to that, we get poured into as well because we have an opportunity to experience the culture, to build relationships. I was thinking about that. I told a friend of mine the other day, I said, I know now by name several people who live in South Africa, people who live in Botswana, and all of this happened in less than a year, just simply because I made a decision to accept an invitation to be a part of something that I never thought I would be able to. Your life is the better. I feel like my life is the better for because of what I was exposed to, not only because of what I'm able to give and pour and how I'm able to serve, but what I've been exposed to. Would you agree with that, Keith and Takhia?
Yes,
Absolutely.
definitely.
So March 2024, we plan to go back to South Africa again. There may be opportunity before then, but definitely Dr. Norma has stated that March will be the year, and it will be the month of every year that we go back. And of course, we're going to be continuing our relationship with literacy. The TEDx conferences are going to be a part of it. If nothing changes, the cultural aspect of next year's trip will be in Soweto. I mean, not Soweto. It will be in Cape Town. We'll be going to Cape Town, which is on the coast. So unless something changes, that's the plan. I shared that, and I'm glad you both were able to be on here today because I said 30 minutes and I said, who you fooling? It's going to be every bit of 45, not more. But I'm glad you were able to be a part of the experience. I'm glad we were able to share this experience together. And I'm glad you were able to share your experience for those who may be watching now or watching in the future, because we want as many people as possible to embrace this opportunity, to be a part, to partner with us, whether that be financially from a distance or partner with us by going and serving alongside and being a part of the whole experience. That is it for tonight. For everybody that's been watching, thank you so very much for carving out time to join us with conversations about Chosen Pen. Dr. Norma, I have no doubt, is either watching or will be watching. If you have and want more information about Chosen Pen Publishing, the information is on the screen. Simply go to our website, chosenpen.com. If you'd like more information about how you can support the literacy program, whether that be to provide books, support our tablet, the Chromebook campaign, or to be able to financially support the school that we've adopted, Robin Hills Elementary, contact Dr. Carol Harrison at the number there, or just contact us at Chosen Pen. Either way, we will be there to serve, to provide you with the information that we have available. That being said, this is it for tonight's episode of Conversations with Chosen Pen. Thank you so very much for joining us each and every Monday night. We're here 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we look forward to seeing you again real soon. Have a great evening, everybody.